Owning a vehicle legally in the Lone Star State may soon be off limits for those without documentation. The Texas DMV moving rapidly toward a game-changing regulation. Elsewhere, scores of Texas public school campuses set for permanent closure. Is the approaching era of state-funded education freedom accounts already contributing to the contraction? And on the global stage, Donald Trump's Greenland gambit set to get the United States new sovereign ground. But did the threat of military force do lasting damage to America's image? I'm Greg Grugan, and welcome to What's Your Point, where our panelists call it like they see it. Let's greet them. Starting us off, attorney and conservative commentator Gary Polland. Next up, longtime Fox 26 legal and political analyst Chris Tritico. In the three spot, former congressional candidate and What's Your Point original Diane Zamore. Batting cleanup, public safety advocate April Aguirre. And closing us out, Bill King, well-known businessman, columnist, and fellow at Rice University's Baker Institute. Let's begin.
The war, which we won it big. Without us, right now you'd all be speaking German and a little Japanese, perhaps. After the war, we gave Greenland back to Denmark. How stupid were we to do that? But we did it. But we gave it back. But how ungrateful are they now?
Bristling with superpower entitlement, America's 47th president descended on the World Economic Conference in Davos, intent on exercising the kind of leverage that control of the world's most powerful military allows him. Simply put, Mr. Trump demanded unfettered access, if not outright ownership, of Greenland, and he didn't hesitate to rattle the biggest saber on the planet to get it.
People thought I would use force. I don't have to use force. I don't want to use force.
All right, a collective sigh of relief expelled from Copenhagen to Wall Street. The president called the tentative deal with Denmark a great one, guaranteeing the U.S. exclusive access to the island's rare earth deposits and sovereign control over patches of Greenlandic territory necessary for military bases. Panel critics say it all could have been accomplished without brandishing rifle barrel bluster at a more or less defenseless NATO ally. Is that a fair statement, Bill King?
So we have a military base in Greenland right now. At the height of the Cold War, we had over 50 military bases. We voluntarily gave up all of those because we decided we did not need them. Greenland has never denied us the access to have a military base there. And from what I talk to the people that are in the mining business, they say that the rare earths in Greenland are unminable. It is not possible to go up there and mine those. And by the way, mining rare earths is not the problem. Refining them is the problem. That's where so I don't see that anything really got accomplished here.
All right, was this just, saber rattling?
Yes, it was, and I agree with Bill. I don't think anything was accomplished. I mean, the good news is that, and if you watch Trump, his pattern, he goes out with his statements that are way out there, and then he retreats, right? And so that's what he did here. So we're back to where we were, which is we can put military bases there, we can put the Golden Dome there, and we don't have to have sovereignty and have to pay for the welfare costs of all these people. So what it became, I think, is a distraction, and the message. My concern is this kind of talk, if you don't follow it with action, lessens your credibility. And this would be the example with Iran. He said, we're not going to allow this, we're not going to allow that. Well, let's see what happens, because right now people are looking at him saying, yeah, he's just a big talker, but he doesn't do anything all the time.
All right, April, he goes over there, lectures one more time the European leaders. There's got to be growing resentment. I mean, what was the point?
Some of the things that are his strengths are also his weaknesses. I think that he overexposes himself. He should have held back on some of those statements. Greenland has always been cooperative, as Bill said. We have a military base there right now. It's a Space Force base. And I primarily think that eventually there'll be a mutual agreement that is mutually benefiting both countries. Because let's be honest, there's not much going on in Greenland. I think Pasadena has a higher population than Greenland.
Nyanza, Gary Pollan has made the argument that this president is overexposed. He puts himself out there on everything. He dominates the cycle, and it's going to have a counterproductive result in the end.
I mean, I don't think he's overexposed. I think he has the same exposure he's had since he won. The people that voted for him voted for that specifically. Let's just think about the people of Greenland. There are 57,000 people who live on the island of Greenland. There are more people that live in Pearland that live in Greenland. So when you think about those people in Greenland, when the islanders are talking, they're saying, hey, we were already colonized by Denmark. If anything, we want independence. We want to run our own country. We don't want to be colonized by the United States. So the reality is, if the Greenlanders are set to be colonized by the United States and they didn't want to be colonized by Denmark, maybe it's up to the Greenlanders to fight for their own freedom instead of worrying about who's going to colonize them. I mean, some of these countries, and I'm not trying to say that the smaller countries are bad, but some of these countries, they complain for decades, but I never saw the Greenlanders try to fight against the Denmarkans trying to get their independence. But now they have something to say.
All right, Chris Tritico, an even more exact population match is the number of people living in Huntsville, Texas.
That's right.
So we are the world's greatest superpower,
That's right.
threatening, to take over.
And the people in Huntsville would be fighting.
They're armed.
That's right. They have weapons. Look, that speech in Davos was just this horrible lie after lie after lie about stuff that I don't know what the president was thinking. I don't know where he thought that speech was gonna benefit the United States. It set us back decades about things that we didn't have any reason to be fighting about, that we didn't be arguing about. I don't know where he thought he was going with it. It had no beginning, no middle, or no end, and it was this rambling speech that did nothing to benefit the United States. He wants to get rare earths, and that's something that I will rarely say I agree with the president, that the United States needs to get on top of the rare earth game because China controls that market, and we need to figure out how we're going to get some and how we're going to refine those, because they control the world's market on rare earths, and we let them do that. And until the United States gets control of its own rare earths, we're behind the curve.
Really quickly, Bill.
So on the rare earths, let me just make sure everybody understands, they're not that rare. It is the refining. The refining is a very difficult environmental problem. It's very difficult to do it in the United States. China does it. They don't have all the environmental regulations.
They don't
That's
care.
why they dominate the market.
Right.
Got it. Okay, still to come, paying the price of protest. Texas House Democrats get a steep bill for bailing out of a special session. But up next, decision time for the voters of Texas 18. Will it be Edwards or Menifee in the long-awaited runoff?
When you listen, you'll hear the people.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time for change.
I'm Christian Menifee, that fighter who sticks up for people and wins.
Edwards versus Menifee. When we gather again next Sunday, one of them will have prevailed to represent the long-suffering folks of historic Texas 18 in the United States Congress. This race between the former Houston City Council member and the former Harris County attorney has been viewed as a toss-up, albeit with one potentially significant wild card.
I've endorsed Amanda Edwards. I'm asking the people that voted for me, the almost 15,000, I hope you take my lead and vote for Amanda Edwards.
Panel, will the support of Jolanda Jones push Edwards over the top in what will almost certainly be a very low runoff? Nyanza, your take.
Yes, Jolanda Jones's endorsement of Amanda Edwards will absolutely get her those votes. They had an argument between the two candidates concerning a comment that was allegedly made by Jolanda about the golden grill that Christian Menifee's son wore in a commercial. And Christian demanded an apology from Jolanda Jones as well as Amanda Edwards. But when you go back and look at the tape, Jolanda never said any of the claims that Christian Menifee asked for. That caused, and I did a phone poll for my friends and say, hey, what do you think about that? That caused Christian to lose a lot of support. Amanda Edwards is coming out fighting. They only had maybe like a $300,000 campaign raising difference, and right now they have about $286,000 left in Amanda's and about $300,000 left for Christian to spend. They're spending a lot for this race to take the seat for 9 months because these are the original electorate that are voting for these people, the original CD18. Just the next election that we have in November, it will be the expanded CD18, which includes a majority of District 9 that was Al Green's district. So that's why we have another election going on for District 9. When whoever takes over this seat for the next 9 months, they'll be sworn in Congress, they get to vote on a couple of bills, and then they'll come home and they'll be having to go up against Al Green. When Al Green comes in, he's a monster, he's a beast. I've already seen like 7 different billboards all around 610 and 59 for Al Green. So I'm thinking, either one of these people who wins, whether it's Amanda or Christian, you will only be in the seat until November because Al Green is going to take over. And some of the supporters who endorsed Christian Menifee, Rodney Ellis himself has said to Christian, I will endorse you now, but once you're in the race against Al Green, I will endorse Al Green. So what does that say? Maybe Amanda should be the prize winner.
Look, if Amanda loses this race, it'll be like 3 or 4 in a row.
It'll be over. And Amanda's my friend, but I had the conversation with her. When you run and run and run and run and don't meet the votes each time, then it's kind of over for you and you have to figure out another pivot.
Chris, you've seen many Democratic battles. Thoughts here quickly?
Well, with Jolanda Jones coming in here with 15,000 votes that she had, that may just be enough to put Amanda over the top on this race because they were so close. But I agree that when whoever wins comes up against Al Green, that's probably a mountain too high to climb.
Bill, you don't put too much stock into endorsements. Could we be overplaying the Jolanda Jones?
I think in really close races it can be, and also, frankly, in the Democratic primary, black women have done very well the last few elections. So I would think it's a nod to Amanda for this race. But as everybody's already pointed out, I don't see how anybody can beat Al Green. He is a great campaigner. We like or dislike him, like his politics or not. He is a great retail politician. He was a JP over there for decades before he became a congressman. And I'll be surprised if anybody comes close to beating him.
Yeah, well, whoever prevails gets to have the term congressperson attached to their name for the rest of their life. April, is there any candidate here that might appeal to Hispanics?
I really like Amanda Edwards, and I'm going to tell you why. Because she's more of the moderate Democrat in comparison to Christian Menifee, who is just completely feeding into the national Democratic frenzy, right? And that, who told you that was a good campaign ad? That was not good.
Rodney Ellis.
That was not good.
Everybody likes a fighter now, supposedly. Okay, up next, the governor looking for new blood to ride herd on agriculture in the Lone Star State. Question now, will that close the curtain on controversial incumbent Sid Miller?
I'm Nate Sheets, and I'm running for Texas Ag Commissioner to keep Texas lands in Texas hands.
That was Governor Greg Abbott's choice for Ag Commissioner Nathan Sheets, native Texan, Navy veteran, and founder of the nation's top-selling honey, Nature Nates. Sheets' transition from entrepreneur to office seeker and Abbott endorsee has snapped heads in part because it represents a political cold shoulder to incumbent Republican Sid Miller, who has survived an array of ethical probes and appears to have worn out his welcome with the governor. Panel, what should we make of this? I'll go straight to Gary Polland.
Well, I think it's an interesting race. Sheets is better financed than Sid Miller is. You know, what was going on? Sid wasn't sure he was going to run again. Sid also made the short list to be Secretary of Agriculture for Trump. So he was hoping he was going to get the invitation to go to Washington. That did not work out. So then so Sheets told Sid, if you're not running, I'm going to run. Then Sheets finally said, I'm going to run anyway. So that's how he gets in the race. And the governor and Sid have clashed on a number of issues over the years. So it'll be interesting to see. Sid's gotten better name ID, and so it depends who turns out in the vote. So it could go either way.
So I had Nate Sheets' number. Guess who gave it to me? Tomorrow Bell. She was incredibly impressed by this guy. Said, you've got to give him a call. You know, he's got a great story, Bill.
Yeah, listen, he's a much better candidate. Problem with the Republican primary, you just never know how those are going to come out. And this will be probably a fairly good turnout, though, because of the Senate race.
Right.
So if Sheets has the money, he can spend it and get his name ID up. Miller's got a lot of baggage.
Okay, one of the things that Sheets has is an affiliation with natural foods and moving our food supply into a more healthy status. I mean, he even talks kind of the RFK, making America healthy again. Think that's a good play, April?
I definitely do. And what we like is that we're actually going to have a man running our agriculture department who has a business in selling food. You know, you would think that you would want somebody in place that actually has experience. And Sid Miller, you know, with his ethical problems, and he was fined ethically for using funds, you know, personally, I think that it's time for change. And Governor Abbott definitely gave him the cold shoulder. Drama in Austin.
Go ahead, Chris.
The Republicans don't really seem to care about ethical problems at the top of the ticket, and so I'm wondering why we're really concerned about Sid Miller's problems. It didn't seem to bother us with the Attorney General. He's been indicted and tried, and he's been elected with all those problems. So what's Sid's problem? But we'll see. You know, we'll see where it goes.
I made the exact same point on Battleground Texas. You know, look, Nyanza, here we have a new face and a guy who's self-made. Everybody likes a nice narrative.
We like self-made. We like honey. I drink tea, so I'm a fan. But you know what? The other guy, he allowed his chief of staff, who had just been convicted of fraud, to continue to work. So when you have judgment like that, it's like, ethics aside, since apparently everybody's a little unethical on the panel, on their panels, it's just kind of like, do we really, do we really care that much? I mean, we just want to get the honey from the guy who's going to give it to us. And so we want Governor Abbott's choice to win.
Real quickly, Gary, it is kind of a political risk for the governor, because if Sid Miller wins, you know, after Abbott endorses his opponent, it could be kind of a pop to the nose.
Well, it just shows that if it does, that Abbott doesn't have the kind of political control that he thinks he has. I remember last election cycle, he went after a number of Republican legislators who did not support school choice, and got rid of a lot of them.
So do you think he's feeling his oats on this one?
No question.
All right, all right. Well,
and that and $100 million.
Okay. Okay, still to come, a powerful verdict and a cop cleared more than 3 years after the Uvalde school massacre.
Jury find the defendant, Adrian Gonzalez, not guilty. You see it?
A jury acquitting former Uvalde school officer Adrian Gonzalez in the first criminal trial tied to the Robb Elementary shooting in Uvalde. Gonzalez was found not guilty on 29 counts of child endangerment. Prosecutors argued that Gonzalez, one of the first officers on the scene, failed his sworn duty to confront the gunman. 19 students and 2 teachers were killed during a 77-minute rampage. Defense lawyers countered that Gonzalez never actually saw the teenaged killer and ultimately did nothing wrong. Panel, several surviving family members of the slain expressed deep disappointment at what one called fractured faith in the justice system. All right, Chris Tritico, what do you make of this?
So, at the outset, let me just say to those victims that sat through that whole trial and now have lost their faith in the justice system, that this was a failed prosecution from the beginning. And this officer probably never should have been tried. Over hundreds of police officers showed up for this event and were ordered not to go in. And this is the guy? That one guy is the one, you're the one we're going to try for this. This was wrong. They shouldn't have done it. The DA who indicted this should have known better, that they're never going to win this case. If there's anyone that needs to be tried for this at all, it's the chief who ordered them not to go in, and that's the only prosecution, in my view, that has any hope of winning, if at all.
April, you have some unique perspective. You're the wife of a law enforcement officer. You're also a victim advocate, and so you've sat with families like the ones from Uvalde. What's your take here?
First of all, condolences to the family, because the loss doesn't go away. Every single year, every time they hit an anniversary or birthday of a child, holiday, it's renewed pain for them. I just feel like we focused, unfortunately, more attention away from the evildoer and onto the people that responded. Unfortunately, as a nation, we're learning how to respond to these evil acts that 100 years ago, 50 years ago, were not happening. I remember Columbine when I was a little girl. I remember Sandy Hook when I was a young girl, and how the schools had changes made. These same changes that were implemented to keep children safe hindered the officers from being able to access the children, because the doors have steel frames, and it's not as easy as taking down a door in a residential area. But unfortunately, we have learned. The state of Texas now mandates that officers are in every school. Every school. Even if we can afford stadiums, we can afford officers. Officers that know the school, that have keys to open doors, and can respond quickly. And we don't have to depend on our city or local police to respond. We have to be ready to face this type of evil, even if it's coming from a teenager's hands or a student's hands itself.
Gary, I'm guessing you weren't surprised at this outcome.
No, I never thought that they would be able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he committed a crime. I'm not even sure that the crime was properly charged. I think it's more in the nature of civil. I mean, if there was a complaint he wasn't doing his duty, you can go to T-Close, you can ask for his certification to be taken away as a law enforcement officer. But other than that, it's preordained. When juries take seriously the burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt, these cases are almost impossible to prove.
Agree with that, Nyanza?
I do, but you have to think, if 340 officers were called to the scene, there were 19 children that died. They charged him with 21 counts of murder, whatever. Endangerment. Then you have to think, why was he singled out? Why just him? If the parents wanted blood and the DA just wanted to throw somebody out there, this is exactly what happens. It's a not guilty.
Final word.
Well, this is what's called a crime of omission. The vast majority of criminal crimes are crimes of commission. You went and actually did something. This is saying that you failed to do something. Those crimes are fairly rare to begin with in the statutory scheme, and also they're very, very difficult to prove.
Okay, we're going to leave it there. Still ahead, financially punished for leaving the state and arguably their sworn duty. Texas House Democrats assess painful fines for busting quorum.
We are running from nothing. We are running to the front lines.
Subpoenas from Texas don't work in New York. So he gonna come get us how?
The largest African-American population in the country is in Texas. The second largest Hispanic population in the country is in Texas. But they want to silence our voice.
Little trip down memory lane back to the out-of-state protest elopement of Texas House Democrats over the issue of Republican reconfiguration of congressional election maps. The quorum break lasted 15 days and ultimately failed to block the GOP redistricting maps. Fast forward 5 months and we now know the punitive price each of the protesting Democrats will be forced to pay for playing hooky on the legislative process, $9,300 apiece. Panel House Speaker Dustin Burrows warned of consequences. Does this $500,000 total in fines represent a fair punishment now for what we see as, kind of a principled dereliction of duty? Chris, your thoughts here?
Well, first, I think that if something like this happens again, I think they'll happily do it again, and I think they're happy to pay the $9,300. I think that you're right; it's a principled issue. And they don't feel like they violated their oath. They feel like they upheld their oath, and it's a price that they're happy to pay.
All right, Bill, there's an old saying, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always gotten, which was nothing here, really. They got some national press.
Well, the whole thing's just an embarrassment to me. I mean, I sort of shake my head at this whole. What I think is interesting is that increasingly it looks like they didn't really create 5 Republican seats. Mark Jones says now it's going to be a maximum of 3. But they really created 5 in California. And I saw an analysis of it. After you threw all the gerrymandering shenanigans that went on, the Democrats actually picked up 1 seat and all of that. So great job, guys. Just keep it up.
Now, playing hooky can be effective. We saw it here on Harris County Commissioner's Court when 2 Republican commissioners made themselves unavailable and kept a lid on taxes, right, Gary?
That's correct. They didn't have a quorum. Yep. Unfortunately, we now only have 1 Republican on the Commissioner's Court, so they can't pull that anymore. Though we do have an election next November, and we need more Republicans on the Commissioner's Court because Harris County government is a train wreck at this point.
Yeah, but breaking quorums is not, and this is an age-old tactic. It's not anything new.
Well, and one other thing, they didn't pay any money. They raised a bunch of national left-wing money that'll pay the fine, so nobody's going to be out of pocket anything.
Right. Yeah, well, did they pick the right topic to walk on, or should they have walked or eloped on school choice? Because that was a big deal.
The gerrymandering issue, just like the representative said, the largest black population in the United States is in Texas. The largest Hispanic population is in Texas. If it's about gerrymandering, I honestly feel like the Democrat who broke the line and came back to vote on the flooding area that happened with the campsite, that Democrat should pay all of the fines for being so whack and weak and messing it up and giving us gerrymandering that completely changed the maps in Texas.
Since we're taking a trip back down memory lane, let us not forget that many Democratic states have, you know, egregiously gerrymandered and pushed down representation for Republicans. Correct, April?
Absolutely right. So it's legal, it's smelly, but it is legal.
Politics.
And if Democrats ever come into power in Texas, they can do the exact same thing.
We learned it from the Reds.
And they will.
Go ahead, Chris.
We will, absolutely.
And just real quick, you know, Dustin Burrows ought to be a little careful here because he needs all of these Democrats' votes to stay in the Speaker's chair.
Dustin.
Okay, dysfunction junction, Bill.
Well, you asked the question about what was the right issue. And yes, it was the right issue because the polling showed that the gerrymandering was wildly unpopular with Texans, while school choice is wildly popular with Texans. So I think they absolutely picked the right issue to stick the flag in the sand.
Gary, do you agree with Bill's assessment that the whole Trump, let's redraw the maps and carve out 5 or 6 more seats, may be backfiring on the Republicans?
Oh, I think it's certainly possible. It's certainly conceivable. It just depends what the election climate is in November. But at the end of the day, we've talked about this many times, that the perception of the voters going in November is the economy's not doing really well, at least it's not doing well for me. They're going to vote for another party. So we're going to play this. You know, it's the spending party in Washington. That's both parties are big spenders, and we'll see then what happens. And I guess the Democrats will come in. They can impeach Trump again, like Al Green likes to do as often as he can. And then we'll come back in 2 years, and people say, "I've had enough of the Democrats. They don't get anything done. We're going to vote Republican again." And as Bill says, and the country kind of drifts, and we don't get anything done. That is a big problem.
Quickly, as you see it right now, Bill King, any chance that Republicans hold the House?
0.
What about the Senate?
The Senate's going to be close, but here's the sort of interesting nuance to that. I can easily see the Democrats getting to 49 seats, and at that point in time, they've got to rely on Susan Collins and Murkowski for the majority, both who hate Trump. And so that's not going to be much comfort for him.
All right, we'll be watching it. Still to come, dozens of public school campuses closed for good across the Lone Star State. What's driving the contraction of available classrooms? But up next, more troubling news for the undocumented living in Texas. Buying and operating a vehicle legally is about to get a great deal harder. By one estimate, there are roughly 2 million undocumented people living and, in most cases, working in the Lone Star State. Under proposed regulations very likely to be put into force by the Texas Department of Motor Vehicles, none of them will be able to legally register or purchase a car, truck, or van for operation on our streets and highways. Despite protests from car dealers and even some county officials dependent on the revenue, DMV's hands may be tied here because this is a call made by the Republican-dominated Texas legislature, which tightened the registration ID requirements to include only unexpired passports with valid visa, or green card for foreign nationals seeking vehicle registration or purchase. Panel, I guess you could call this laying out the unwelcome mat. Right, April?
Absolutely. So this is not a good thing. We're taking revenue away from DMV. Also, we're making our streets unsafer. Usually people that have vehicles that are not registered can't even get the little wimpy insurance that they offer for illegals. So I think it's bad. But the truth is, we're making it more and more difficult for people to live here illegally.
Okay, is this kind of soft deportation policy, Bill?
Well, we're doing a lot of things to make it more difficult for people to live here undocumented. And look, people ought to be documented, but you've got to have a system that you can actually document people, and we don't. You know, there are going to be economic consequences to this, and there are going to be severe economic consequences to this. And anybody that doesn't think that's true has not taken an economics course. Yeah,
one of the Republicans in the House, Brian Harrison, who's, no one's further to the right, I don't think. Gary, I mean, could this kind of backfire on the Texas economy?
Well, it could, and you notice that, as you said in your introduction, that the car dealers are against this. The car dealers' lobby is really strong. I mean, they got car dealerships in every district for every legislator around the state, and so they're not happy. And that may result in less car sales, and so that'll be a potential problem. There will be less revenue, but they won't be paying it. But the problem we have, there's lots of illegals on the road. If you've been in an accident over your life with an illegal, they don't have insurance.
Well, let me say something. On December 23rd, I was hit by a person who's here illegally, and since it was his fault, he drove me off the road, ran into me, and I said, "Are you in the country legally or illegally?" He said, "I'm here illegally." I said, "Well, I won't call the police if you have insurance." And so he had insurance. So I was able to file my claim through the insurance and send him on his merry way. So if the undocumented have insurance,
they should be able to get a license.
They should be able to get a registration for their vehicle. Now, the flip side of that, I was hit 2 years ago by an American with no insurance.
Well,
and I had to sue my own insurance company because I had uninsured motorist coverage.
I think the problem is you.
No, they're hitting me. I'm winning all the way. So I'm just a target. But we need to make sure that if the illegal people can get insurance, then they should be able to drive.
Quickly, Bill.
The solution to this problem is if someone gets stopped and they don't have insurance, the car needs to be towed and it needs to be put in impound until they show up with insurance. Whether it's illegal, an American, a Norwegian, I don't care. If you're driving the car without insurance, your car to be taken away until you get the insurance.
Final word to you, Trudeau.
This is just all kinds of problems with this, and the issue is we're going to put 2 million people now on the road without insurance, and we got a big enough problem with people driving without insurance. Let's put more of them out on the road without insurance and cause a bigger economic problem. It's bad enough already, and this is another horrible legislative idea that you've done. Undo it.
I wonder if Arkansas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, New Mexico have this law. It'd be interesting because they'll be getting some business.
Oh, that's true.
Up next, in a state with a population that's supposed to be growing, why is the number of public school campuses shrinking in districts across Texas? You can't throw a rock in this town, or this state for that matter, without hitting a public office holder or economic development cheerleader talking about explosive growth in the Lone Star State. Listen up, everyone. It's not accurate. Our friend Bill King has led a vanguard of researchers who are documenting the rapidly accumulating facts supporting this inconvenient truth. Recently, even more data emanating from Texas independent school districts, which have announced hard plans to shut down for good more than 50 campuses, with many more to be shuttered in coming years. Panel, yes, there are budget issues. Yes, there are anticipated losses to school choice. But the overriding issue is not enough kids to fill the available seats. You can understand why in Bill King's new book, Depopulation. With that, I go to the fellow from the Baker Institute. What's going on here, Bill?
So there's a couple of things that are happening with schools. One is they're facing increasing competition from charter schools homeschooling and also now voucher schools. But the fundamental demographics that are in place here is that about 50 years ago, women started having dramatically fewer children than they have historically. And this, by the way, is a worldwide phenomenon. It's happening every place across the world. But in the United States, we've been well below the replacement rate, which is about 2.1 for some time now. The only reason we've had any growth in the United States is because of immigration, and now we've shut that off. Here's the reality. In the United States, in Texas, in Harris County, in Houston, any place in this country, you know, we have as many school-age children today as we will ever have in this country. Every year from now on, unless you start letting in a whole bunch of immigrants come in, but absent that, every year we will have fewer school-age children than we have today. That's just the demographic math of it.
Really quickly, any doubt in your mind that HISD is going to shutter campuses?
Well, they absolutely are going to shutter campuses. They're talking about, you know, quietly talking about closing or 20 or 30 schools. I think they probably need to close 50 schools.
Chris works closely with educators. Thoughts here?
Well, HISD has needed to close numerous schools for 20 years. They've had numerous elementary schools with 100 children or less for years and years that the elected board just didn't have the wherewithal to close because they didn't want to upset the communities. And so I think Mike Miles, before he leaves office, I believe he's going to have the board of managers close the schools because they don't care about anything.
Yeah. There's a story out of Austin, AISD, that would boil Gary Pollin's blood, because basically they had to stop construction of some schools because they just flat weren't needed. You know, and so they'd spent borrowed taxpayer bond money.
Yeah, absolutely. That was not right. And they're looking, in Austin, they're taking a hard look at the schools now, too. They're talking about the same things we're talking about here, consolidation, bringing them together and the like. So Bill's right, but I call it the birth dearth. And part of the problem with the birth dearth is, think about this, the number of abortions that take place in America every year is still ridiculous. Okay, and I understand women's right to choose, and I understand all those arguments, but the babies aren't coming. And that's going to create profound implications for our welfare system, Social Security, Medicare. How are you going to pay for all that when you don't have enough people at the lower part of the pyramid working?
I want to give an homage to you two. 5 beautiful kids, Lincoln and Kennedy, who are the watch your point babies. So thank you for doing your part in keeping America strong. All right. Up next, a contender in the race to represent Texas 9 in Congress. Businessman and rancher Dan Mims says he'll bring blue-collar practicality to Capitol Hill. The Republican primary for the freshly reconfigured 9th Congressional District has drawn a deep field of quality candidates. Among them, successful business owner Dan Mims, who's looking to put a lifetime of private sector problem solving to work for the public good.
I know what it's like to run a business in good and bad economic times. I face challenges. And I've been able to endure. I know what it's like to have 175 families depending on you to make the right decisions every single day and make that payroll every 2 weeks. And it's about problem solving. It's about working with people. And that's what we do in Washington. We solve problems. We give hopefully practical solutions to complex problems and bring that business experience to bear and get that done. This district is home. Washington, D.C. will never be my home. I live in District 9. It's my home. This is where I want to be. So every chance I get, I'm going to be here listening to voters, make sure I'm doing what it is that they want me to do. I want to work on good jobs. Our young people need good jobs. We have too many stories of young people not being able to afford that new starter home to start their families. Our communities depend on those young people, and we need to have the jobs that will allow them to do that. But I know what it's like when people come in from Washington, from one of the alphabet soup agencies. They're never there to help. And the thing that I hear from industry leaders, and even myself, We don't mind regulation. We expect it. We respect it. We understand the purpose for it. We just want it to be consistent, reasonable, and not be a hindrance to actually getting the job done. And sometimes these regulators are more interested in stalling projects than they are in helping you get the project done right. And there's a difference. Mims Meat Company was a blue-collar company. This is a blue-collar district. And so I understand them. I know what it's like to work hard. My dad made darn sure of that. I've done all those hard jobs. And I respect and appreciate those who do. And I think they deserve to keep more of their hard-earned paychecks.
Panel Mims is looking to secure a place in the runoff against most probably Briscoe Cain or Alex Mueller. What did you think there, Gary?
He sounds like he knows what he's talking about, and he would be an impressive congressman. And the question in that race is who knows who's turning out to vote, and what the votes above the ticket, in terms of the top of the ticket primaries, and we have AG, Comptroller, and U.S. Senate, those matter as to who turns out. So I'm not ruling him out. I'm saying he's not able to make it. He could make it. Mueller has been around now. Briscoe's been around. And, you know, it's interesting. If you're not in the district, how much do you really see of that campaign? You really don't see much. So it's going to be fascinating. But the question I ask is this. Why would somebody like him, an accomplished businessman, want to be in Congress, besides the reason Chris said?
Well, you know, far be it from me, I've only been doing this 40 years, but I sense a genuine desire to make a difference. A lot of them go up there with that, April.
They do, and unfortunately they find that they're going to be stonewalled. But I like that more people are in the run. I will say that we are very lucky that we have 3 good candidates, but Alex Mueller, she's just such a worker. I've seen her do some work behind the scenes that she doesn't really take credit for because she doesn't put it out there that much. But when Jocelyn Ungary was murdered, she was right there with me at the funeral home, planning everything with HPD to make sure that the family was able to get in and get out, and also with Mattress Mac to ensure that we had plenty of funding in her GoFundMe that was going to support this family for at least a year. But we'll see what happens. I also like that she is a combat veteran. People that sign up to go to the military in a time of war, it just really says something. Should mention Dwayne Stovall, who ran for Senate. He's in this race too. Right. So I think it's definitely going to be a runoff. You agree with that?
Yeah, I think runoff for sure. And the problem is this is way down the ballot, and none of these people are really all that well known. I guess, probably the state rep is the best known.
Briscoe Cain, who represents a lot of that district.
Okay, still to come, a primary challenger for the Lone Star State's 3-term governor. Her name is Evelyn Brooks, and you'll hear her pitch on the other side of this break. On tonight's edition of Battleground Texas, airing at 9:45, right here on Fox 26, we're talking to Republican for Governor Evelyn Brooks, who is offering herself as an alternative to Greg Abbott in the GOP primary.
I'm not running against Greg Abbott because I think he's done a bad job. I would just say that the failure of our public school system happened on his watch. And if he's unable to fix the problem, then you need someone else who can come in and do that job.
Governor Abbott reporting a daunting $106 million political war chest, a good chunk of which he says he's going to spend in Harris County. Will it matter, Bill, quickly?
It's going to be a bad cycle for the Republicans unless something dramatically changes in Washington. It's just very hard to get away from that top of the ballot stuff. By the way, Abbott's polling has come down substantially in the last 6 months or so. It's really kind of surprising to me. But unless something happens in the national level to change the current narrative, it's going to be a tough year for Republicans.
Gary has said it's the economy, stupid. Does it help here if Trump is upside down still? That kind of money.
The money, if it's spent effectively, can help. And it can make a difference. But if the perception of the national economy is it's not doing really well, that may not be enough to overcome that. But we'll see. The Democrats are not going to be able to compete with Abbott. Abbott is is the champion fundraiser. And it goes back for 30, 40 years. Unbelievable fundraiser. The guy, he is relentless.
And you think he's going to run for president, too?
I do.
Okay. Thanks to this week's panel, and thank you for joining us. The conversation continues on a national level next on Fox News Sunday with Shannon Bream. From all of us here, have a safe, warm, and happy week.